This is the true story of a mother whose only daughter was gruesomely murdered, and 3 years later, she was also killed in the same manner her daughter was killed. Fiona, a 20-year-old girl, lived with her mother Yemisi Ajayi in Akure, Ondo State. Yemisi worked as a cleaner in a bottle-producing company. Given the nature of her job, Yemisi will always leave home early in the morning and return late in the evening, leaving her daughter Fiona at home to take care of herself. On March 15, 2018, Yemisi went to work as usual, but what she came back and saw is one of the most horrible sights no mother would ever pray to see. Fiona was preparing what to eat that morning as the mother left for work. Moments later, Fiona heard a knock on the door. It wasn't unusual, as she thought her mother, who just left the house, may have forgotten something and had rushed back to pick it. As she made her way to the door was forcefully opened, and in front of her stood a man desperate to take two things from her: her virginity and ultimately her life. Fiona struggled unsuccessfully with the assailant, but the intruder was stronger. He overpowered her, raped her, and stabbed her multiple times on her stomach before fleeing. When Yemisi returned from work, all didn't seem well, as she had called her daughter's phone severally while at work, but her phone kept ringing without response. She quickly rushed inside the house, and what she saw left her traumatized for the rest of her life. Her only daughter was tied to the bed, soaked in blood, with multiple knife-inflicted injuries all over her body. Mrs. Yemisi immediately raised an alarm and reported the incidents to the police. After weeks of investigation and fact findings, Ebenezer Ademilola, a 22-year-old man, was arrested as the prime suspect of the crime. Ebenezer, according to investigations, was Fiona's boyfriend, whom she had dated for about 2 years before the sad incident. Report also has it that Ebenezer had been disturbing Fiona constantly for sex, a demand that Fiona was not willing to accept. As pressure intensified from Ebenezer, Fiona could no longer handle the situation. She was said to have reported Ebenezer to her mother, who warned Ebenezer and asked him to stay away from her daughter. The police, while investigating Fiona's death, arrested the said boyfriend and charged him to court. Surprisingly, the suspect, Ebenezer Ademilola, was released shortly after legal advice from the Directorate of Public Prosecution said he had no case to answer. Mrs. Yemisi continued her life of misery, wishing she would one day wake up and discover that all what has happened to her was just a dream. If what happened to Fiona is shocking and barbaric to you, then you can only imagine how horrific the situation became 3 years later. In the late hours of Tuesday, October 19, 2021, Yemisi had just finished eating with her 7-year-old adopted daughter, a child she adopted after the death of her only daughter, Fiona, and was about going to bed when the unthinkable happened. Two people had entered her bedroom through the ceiling, and as soon as she stepped into the room, she was grabbed immediately. Her mouth covered with clothes, she became helpless. Staring at death in the face, she summoned courage to scream. But it was already too late. The attacker stabbed her multiple times on the chest and fled in the same direction they came, leaving her to bleed to death. Yemisi Ajayi's lifeless body was discovered the next morning by her adopted daughter, who had gone to greet her as usual. The young girl narrated that on that fateful morning, when she entered Yemisi Ajayi's room, she saw her lying on the floor in an unusual position with blood all over her body and clothes stuffed in her mouth. She screamed until neighbors rushed to the scene. Yemisi Ajayi's body lay lifeless, murdered in cold blood, in the same house and in the same manner her daughter was killed 3 years ago. Once again, the police were contacted and investigations were carried out. But just like Fiona's case, no one was brought to justice. Today, this story stands as one of the most disturbing cases of denied justice, a mother and daughter systematically wiped out, with no clear trace of the perpetrators of such an heinous crime.